In this video, you'll learn how to authenticate users in n8n using magic links. These are special links that you can send to your user's phone, email, etc. that they can click to identify themselves to your n8n applications. We're going to add them to our n8n workflow to authenticate users before we give them access to account-specific information. This is lesson 7 in our n8n crash course. If you're new to the series, this video will be self-contained, so you don't need to watch any of the other videos. But if you want to learn more about using n8n or want some additional context, then check out the whole course. Alright, let's jump in. In the last couple of videos, we saw different methods for building RAG agents to answer product questions in n8n, but what if a user wants account-specific information? To authenticate a user's request, we're going to build a magic link, send it to the user's email, and then when they click it, it will trigger our authentication workflow. That workflow will return an authentication status to our main workflow, which we can use to determine how to respond to the user's query. So what actually is a magic link? It's essentially a code that we communicate to a user through some channel that identifies them. In this case, it will be their email. Since the user has to log in to click the link, clicking the link confirms that the person who submitted a question to our contact form is who he says he is, or at least that he has access to the email that's associated with the request. So let's see how to do this in n8n. The first thing we need to do is categorize the type of inquiry. In our system, these account-specific requests are considered support inquiries, and these also include product questions. So what we're going to need to do is first build a workflow that separates out the ones that require authentication from the ones that don't. So you might remember we actually already did that in an earlier lesson, where we initially categorized and sorted each submission into one of 3 buckets. So we're going to repeat that exact same thing here. So I went ahead and just did that because it mirrors the same structure from before, so you can watch the earlier video if you want to see more about how this is done. But we define our support categories, so account-specific, product help, and other inquiries. We construct this dynamic string to avoid errors in the future in case we change those classes. And then we use an LLM to determine the exact type. We then cast the LLM's answer to JSON, and then we switch according to the subcategory. So we have our product questions. So in the last 2 videos, we saw 2 different methods to build a RAG agent, and we connect our product questions into one of those. And then we have our account-specific questions that will go here. So we're going to have our authentication workflow, and then after authentication, we're going to have the section of our workflow that handles the inquiries after they've been authenticated. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to create a new form submission, and this will be for an account question, and I'll hook that up, and we're going to unpin this data, and then we will execute the workflow. So that's going to open up this form. So here we just have an inquiry asking how many droplets are currently running on my account. So we'll submit that, and if we go back to our workflow, we can see it already working. Oops, and I accidentally had general inquiry hooked up here, so I'm gonna hook that up there and pin this data. So I hooked up the support inquiry to this right workflow, and then we'll keep that going. And now we saw this request was appropriately categorized as an account-specific inquiry. So now we can start working on our authentication workflow. There are a couple of different methods we can use to generate the token that we will put in our magic link and insert into our database, which we'll do in the next lesson. The easiest way is to just generate it with the crypto node. We can change the name of the node to generate token, and then change the action from hash to generate. You can leave the property name as data, and in this case, we'll just generate a hex string. We're going to make our tokens 256 bits of information. And since each hex character represents 4 bits of information, we're going to need 64 of them. And now we can generate this token. And here we see the token. So we can drag that in here. And there are other ways we could potentially generate this token. We could concatenate some information like the execution ID, the current time, the user's email, and a secret key, and then hash that to create the token. But that's not quite as secure as just generating a random one. And of course, we could increase the length of this string to make it harder to guess or brute force. So if we send it to the user through a secure channel and it's to a place to which they only have access, like their email, we also need to make sure that these codes are ephemeral, so they only last for like 15 minutes. And we need to make sure that they're single use. And if we do all of this, this will be a secure method to authenticate users. Now we need to actually create the database in which we're going to store and retrieve these tokens. So continue on to the next lesson to learn how to do that.